Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Dennis. So today we're going to be doing a review of the Be Quiet Pure Loop 360mm. Now I've already done one earlier than that, so this is kind of just be an over review. I'll quickly show you stuff's in the box. It's not a complete install because we're going to use it on a new CPU I've got, and so I'll just show you what's in the box, and then we'll put it on the CPU, and we'll see how it works. I have no doubts it's going to work great because the other one did. And this was provided again to me from Be Quiet. And let's have a look. Basically, the only difference between this and the last one I did is there's one extra fan. The other one was a 280, so it has 2 fans, and this one has 3. Everything else is exactly the same. The only difference that I think is going to be in the box, and we'll get it out here in a minute and we'll see, is instead of a fan splitter for 2 fans, it's going to have one for 3. Really, I don't think there's going to be any other differences, but let me get everything out of the box and we'll see if there is a difference or not. So in our box, we can see we got 1, 2, 3 fans, our mounting hardware, and of course our radiator. So I get this all out, put it down here on the turntable, and we'll have a look at it. So here's everything you get. You got the Intel package, which you will not need, with all the brackets, back plates, all that kind of good stuff. And then you've got the brackets that you need for AMD, all our little screws here. So I'll just show you the brackets. So these are the brackets. I'll just move them up here. So there we go. You have more coolant. Okay, I'm just going to keep that in plastic. They do suggest 2 years from now, fill it up and replace it. And it's an all-in-one cooler. So everything is self-contained, but you do they do recommend in 2 years just replace it, and then you'll get a lot more longevity out of it. You can see your pump. Your pump is right here, and this is just goes on your CPU, right? Of course, there's our rad, which is much longer. Our 3 fans, and that's pretty much it. That's all you're gonna have. Your screws to mount it with, and so we're gonna do all that. And yes, the only difference is you have your 3 connectors for your fans, all right? And of course your SATA and your thermal paste, okay? So your SATA cable for power. So that's all there is. Pretty simple, pretty basic. I'm going to mount it into the case that I've got, 802 silent, and we'll see all that later on when I have the motherboard in, and we'll see the temperatures. So that's coming up. Okay, so I did want to just show you how everything goes together. So all your fans are on here. Put your wires, depending on whether you need them on this side or that side, so you can keep them all together. Then you take your connector, so connect your fans together here. Okay, so you got those 2 connectors, and then this one here, which will go to a motherboard header. Okay, moving aside from that for your fans, then you've got your pump here, and of course your cold plate that's going to go on your CPU, connected with the 2 connectors here, these 2, and this is going to power from the SATA, and then you've got all your power. So now all is left is to mount it into the case, and we're done. And then putting it onto the CPU, of course. Okay, so when you're looking at the case, you can understand why it's so easy to put it in here, and the reason why I want the cables coming down this way, because our hub on our case is right here. So this is going to push forward. You're going to be able to mount the radiator on here with the fans blowing into the rad, have our cables come on down here and plug directly into our hub. Solves a lot of problems, makes it very, very easy. So the only thing I did is I took out the 2 screws. I did fix the case. I had a bit of a dent in here before, but thanks to a little tool I had, I was able to bend that back in shape. So now this does freely slide in and out. And you can see how this is going to come out. And you're going to be able to mount to it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to put it on here, slide it back in, and you'll see how everything's going to go. Okay, so you can see how I got the top of the case that goes onto the rad. So I just secured it in the 4 corners, okay, just up here. And then I'm just going to put in all the rest of the screws to hold it in place, slide it back into the case, and I'll show you how that's done here in just a moment. Okay, so you can see where I've started to push it in on the top. Radiators here, or fans are here blowing into the radiator. Our pump is sitting down below, and this is going to go up to our CPU once we have our motherboard in. I run all the cables in the back, okay, up behind it. And then the only thing that's going to be left is once this goes on to our CPU, it'll be all good. Keep in mind that these can move a little bit, so you can push it in out of the way. But for now, all I'm going to do is push this in. Okay, it's going to go all the way in. So you just have to maneuver it a little bit. Tighten our 2 screws, and that's going to be it. So, okay, our side panel will go back on, no problem. And we're done. That's all there is to mounting this in this case. It certainly makes it easier to do everything else. Yes, you could do this as the last step, so you could always just pull this out and just leave it set aside, put your motherboard and everything in first, and then go ahead and do this. But I just wanted to show this to you of how easy this is to install in this case. So we'll go on, put the CPU in, do everything else, install the motherboard, all that kind of stuff, and we'll go from there. Okay, so one thing I want to point out on this processor is all the important information. So like I said, it's Ryzen 7 5800X, 8 core, 16 thread, PCIe 4.0 ready, so it can get the 4.7 gigahertz max boost with a base of 3.8 gigahertz. There is no discrete graphics card, so you will require one. Alright, so let's get it out of the box. I've already perforated it, so the only thing that's in there, there's no cooler. Okay, just a whole lot of cardboard to hold just this. Isn't that crazy? Here's a processor. I'll get it up here and show it to you. Alright. So, what's left to do is to install it. But before we install it, I want to point this out. Okay, it says right on here, important. Okay, so your Ryzen 5000 series desktop processor in this package is compatible with an AMD socket AM4 motherboards when a compatible BIOS update has been installed. So with the B550 and X570, it should work out of box, but we're going to find out because I've got one. We're going to put it in and we'll find out. And of course, the only other thing that comes in the box is your little pamphlet of how to install your CPU. Let's get it installed and go from there. So installing our CPU is going to go on to a B550 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi from MSI, and has the AM4 socket. And first thing you need to do is get your CPU out, lift this bracket up, line up your arrow down with the corner down here, and then just pop it in place. That's all there really is to it. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you that, and let's get at it. So once you have your CPU open, just be very careful not to touch it. There's little gaps here. So it lets you take it so you can pick it up from the side without actually touching the CPU itself. So hold it by the edges. You can always inspect it to make sure no bent pins or anything like that. Okay, so line this up. Like I said, your arrow's down here. You can barely see it. Same thing on your motherboard, but you can see that little white circle that indicates where the triangle needs to go. So we lift this up, take our CPU, line it up with this, and you'll see it, it'll just plop down. Put this back down under that little tab here and pull it out. And now it's under that tab and you've done your CPU install. That's it. So there's lots of different theories and ways of putting on thermal paste, many of which have been tested. And honestly, there really is no difference between one and the other. The differences are not enough that it really matters. So I'm going to use the thermal paste that came with my AIO, and I'm going to put it on. So then we're going to put the bracket and everything on. But first, before we do any of that, we have to remove these brackets here before we can put on our AIO. The back plate will then come off, after which we're going to use that same back plate with our other components for the AIO to install it and put everything back on. Remove these brackets. And same thing on this side. Now here's a little tip. Before you take that one off and let this whole thing drop down, take your bracket, fit it over the holes. Okay, it's going to go like that. But first, take these pieces here. All right. And there's only one end that goes on. And you're going to fasten you're going to put 2 screws in there and fasten this piece on. Then you do the other side. That way it just saves you from trying to get the back plate and holding it in place and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, don't tighten it all the way because you want to make sure you line that one up. Again, take your screw, make sure it goes down. Once you know it's in place, tighten that on. Okay, so that's going to hold it in place. Now you can take this one out, do the same thing, and then you're going to be done. See, now that stays in place for you. Makes it a lot easier for you to put your other little pieces here on. That's it. Now we're going to apply our thermal paste on here and put on our cooler. And that's it. I know it's a bit of a mess. It really won't make any difference. And carefully, you're going to line this up with these holes, with these screws. Okay, these screws here with these holes down here. All right. And they will go on there quite easily, actually. It's quite easy to line up. And then just tighten it down. This is by far the easiest installation of probably pretty much any cooler I've ever done, actually. And you'll turn until it just doesn't turn anymore. You'll know because you'll feel it. Okay, so that's good and tight. This should be as well. Just check it one more time. And that's it. We'll adjust this, everything afterward, and our cables. But now we can actually move on to all the other important stuff. Okay, so I switched out the CPU in this because it was not compatible. I had to do a BIOS upgrade, all that kind of good stuff. So now I'm just going to go into the BIOS just to show you that it is booting and all that kind of good stuff. Our CPU water cooler is definitely running. You can see the light there. Okay, so you can see the white LED around our water cooler. Pump is here. So radiator is all on top, of course. That's all the perfect way that everybody wants to see it today. So there's that. So my SSD is going to be running the operating system. So we're going to focus on the BIOS here a little bit just to show you what's going on a little bit. And then we're going to go show you some of the temps. Okay, so here's our BIOS. Okay, BIOS version right there, 0.140. There is a newer beta one, but didn't want to take the chance because this has been a whole thing. I've had to take that CPU back out, put in a previous one. Thankfully, I had one. You can do an M-Flash BIOS update too, but it did not work for mine for whatever reason. And rather than just mess around, because of the timing of trying to get this video out, I took a 3100X, put it in here, and updated it to the most current BIOS, so that I could then put the 5800 in here. So if you're looking at this motherboard, keep it in mind, you will need to do that. Well, most likely. It's always a chance you may not. So we look back at our BIOS, see your voltage core, DDR voltage, BIOS is CSM UEFI. There's our name of our motherboard, just so if you're curious what it is. And it's the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X 8-core processor, 16 thread. That's our memory being used, just slightly over 32 gigabyte. And the date of the BIOS. So, of course, I'll have to go in here and I'll set my XMP profiles. I gotta go in and set all my storage drives, all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't matter for this video. For the cooler. So, what we want to see for the cooler is what kind of temps are we getting. So let's go find some software that'll show us that. Okay, so one thing I did want to mention is it does show your CPU core temperature here and motherboard. So it runs a little hotter than some other processors I've had, but this thing's supposed to be a beast, so we'll see what it says otherwise. Okay, so we're in MSI's Dragon Center, and yes, I did have issues getting it started, but the one thing I did find out, which I will do a separate video on, was figuring out how to fix all those problems. Much easier than you think, at least it was for me, although it was troublesome trying to figure it all out. There's one program they tell you to install, and I just completely ignored it, and that helped a ton. So that video will be coming. For now, everything's in here. It's all good and working. MSI, Mystic Light, all that kind of good stuff. We want to go down to, is it monitor? Yes, monitor. So now it's going to show you all your voltages. Okay, same thing as we were looking at before. Your DRAM frequency is at 2133. Like I said, I'm going to fix that up. Now your pump is going to say 0 because we don't have it on the CPU. It's connected otherwise for this particular the way this works. But you can look over here, and our temperatures are setting at 31. CPU socket temperature is 27, and the fans is, I've got it turned down. So if I ramp that up, let's see what happens. So I'm going to put it on auto, which is basically full out, I believe, instead of having like the PWM control. And let's see if it makes any difference in bringing the temperatures down. It probably won't. I don't think, well, it may, but it'll be minor. All right, so it's staying pretty much right where I said it was at. 30, 26, and 33, and going up to 31. And it's, of course, pretty much idle. I'll probably do a separate video on this once I get more things in there and all set up to show you how it works in a game and all that kind of stuff, because I know you guys are interested in that. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see what the temperatures get to. For now, maybe that's pretty much it, because this has taken way more time than it should have. So stay tuned for that. Let me know what you want to see, and I'll try and get it for you. But in the meantime, I'm just happy with the frequency and all the stuff that MSI Dragon Center can do. It was a major pain. Like I say, I am going to do another video on that, because I now have a solution for the most current one, how to get it, what to do, all that kind of good stuff. So stay tuned, and that will be coming for sure. All right, everybody, so that was a lot. Okay, so putting in the water cooler turned into switching CPUs, and then switching CPUs again, and then switching them again, and it was a whole thing. I had to do a BIOS update, and I never honestly done, other than the software version, a BIOS update before, and people have been asking, so I had to figure it out, because I couldn't do the video otherwise, because it would not accept the 5800 Ryzen 7 5800X in the motherboard unless I updated the BIOS first. Thankfully, I had a prior one, which as you can see, the system is all torn apart, because the CPU is back in it. I just got to hook everything back up. But at least now, that system is running a brand new system that's going to be mine. I'm still waiting to get my hands on a 3080 or maybe a 3070. I haven't decided. Let me know which one you think is better value, or bang for buck, or whatever you want to call it. There's not a lot of RGB in this case, because you usually can't see it. kind of like this one. It pushes that way. Can't see it anyway. Anyway, I'm dragging on. A lot of things I wanted to show you was more on the Temps, do like Cinebench and all that kind of stuff, but it just kind of ran out of time. So I still have to edit this and get it out, and I've got about 4 hours, and it's probably going to take me a lot longer than that. So the video probably may be late. We'll see. And there'd be a build video coming soon after that, because I film it separately at 2 different times when I'm doing this, so I can show you the whole thing, how everything went together, step by step, and then water cooler for this one. So stay tuned for that, and hope you liked it. If you liked it, hit that like. It really helps out. If you don't, well, you know what to do. If you're new here, think about subscribing. Hit that bell for future videos as they come up, and stay tuned for the next one. It will be better. And probably not the Dragon Center next, but we'll see. Probably going to be the build, and then maybe Dragon Center. Oh, I'll figure it out. But I know a lot of people have complaints about Dragon Center just not working. Just garbage. And you know what? I agree with you. But not anymore. Because there is a way to fix it. It's not easy, but it works. And I am going to show you all that, and we'll be good to go. And you'll be good to go. Well, hopefully. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've stuck around this long, thank you very much. Take care till the next time.